So if you look over here in Supabase, I've created 4 tables: bookings, entity, room, user. And so it's actually pretty straightforward. So you can actually come in here, create a new table, or of course write SQL queries, whichever works best for you. But of course, to make things a lot faster, you could of course just use this editor over here and then create a new table. And here I've created 4 tables. And what I would want to do now, of course, is to show you how to interact with these tables and then make queries, CRUD queries to them, more or less, to fetch data. And we can, of course, go over to our code editor, and then I would show you how that can be done actually. So we are back here in the editor, and what we can already do is maybe also define a class. And I can call this table API, maybe API handler, and then say it extends our API handler class. And I would want to do a couple of things to get this all set up. So I can define a constructor. So the constructor would take the table, the name of the table. I can call this table name, and the next thing I would want to do is maybe to define a limit that would we use, of course, to query our table, and this will be a number, and maybe I give it a default value of 100. And yeah, what I might want to do is to maybe, of course, define this as maybe private properties. So this will be table name, will be of course the type string, limit of type number, and then here I can say super, of course, so we can instantiate the class we are inheriting. But of course we don't have to supply anything, because of course the parent class doesn't have anything that we need to instantiate. So now I can say table name would be, of course, this table name, and I can call this maybe I just call this range for now. Call this range, and call this range like this. And we have our class set up this way. So of course, the first query, interesting thing might, of course, maybe to fetch everything in a given database. So I can define a function. I call this get all, and it should, and this function, again, we use the same clients. That's really the beauty of this, and this client that from, and we provide the table, this table, and then we can run a select, and here we simply select everything, for example. And of course we need to await this async function, and this would return 2 things. So I have to destructure this again. So if you hover over here, and you'll see like a couple of things we actually get returned, but I would want to destructure this in such a way so I can call this data and the error for now. And so what I would want to do, of course, is like we did before. If this error exists, we return the error. Otherwise we return data. I can return this data. So what is the type? Is of type any. Okay. Okay, so here I can return a promise, and this would return any, an array, of course, and then the next thing we can return is Postgres error. And that's also, if we want to use this class to actually interact with the table, we instantiate it, of course, with the table name, and then provide this optional parameter or not, and then use the get all function, and then we can actually query everything in a given table. As straightforward as that. And so the next function I would like to query, of course, is also something similar to this, but maybe when you want to fetch some columns. So I can define another function. I can call this get some columns. I don't know, something like this. I'm actually running out of names. So here I would define the columns as a string, and now again we do something similar to what we did before. So we await this at get client, saying from this table, and we select columns, and maybe again we can actually add maybe a range if you wanted to, and we could say maybe from 0 to, I don't know, until this dot range, something like this. And just to be clear, these columns should actually be in this form. So of course it's a string, but it should be in this form. Say column 1, column 2, just like that. It would of course still be a string, but within this string you can provide all the columns you would want to fetch. And again we do what we did before. So what are we getting back? Here, so we again get our data like basically like this actually. So I can copy this, put it in here, and paste it, and then of course copy this one as well and paste it here, and that's already fine. And what else can we do? So now I can do async. If I can type async, and I can say insert rows. So here actually I would want to of course define the models that we are inserting. So I can call these items. It's going to be an array, and here you get to, so if you have it, if you really want to type this, if you have a number of types, you can actually define a new type to hold those types, and then you would then know that items will always be one of those. Otherwise, for now I'm making it just leaving it as any, because again leaving it generic more or less. And again, so I also await. So I get the client, and again I get the table, and I simply call insert, and I add my items. So this is of course always an array. So if you anyways want to insert just one item, of course pass one item, but it needs to be an array. And again I copy something like this, so like this, and yeah, I also copy this to really make it a lot faster. And again our Postgres error and our array, and so I can copy this again, something like this, and put it here, and we are good. That's all the code we need to write to insert. That's really straightforward. And mind you, again we get a Postgres database out of the box, and of course with the full functionality, so you can attach extensions. For example, if you're working with time series data, you can already attach the timescale DB extension. If you want to work with cron jobs, you could attach the PG cron extension, as the case may be. If you want to work with HTTP, for example, from your database, you just simply attach the HTTP data, extension. But other than that, you get a full-fledged working Postgres database out of the box. And like I showed you, this is all the code you would need to insert something in this database. That's super cool, if you ask me. And what else would we want to do? So what if we wanted to update? I can call this update item. And so here I would provide a column that I would use to query to, of course, find the data, and then the value would be any, for example, and then the actual thing I want to update would be an object. I will leave it as this for now. And again, so we get the client we provide our table. Now we update, and of course here I would now then destructure this object called update, and of course this would be where this column is equal to this value. So here this column can be where ID is equal to this, whatever the case may be, but this is how we can put this in this query. And then we run our select method, and that's it. That's all we need to do to insert. Again, like here, we also I can copy this again, put it in here to be as fast as possible. And again, I copy this last part, put it in here, and return type again would be something like this, I think. So it should be yes, this should be fine. That's all. And then of course maybe delete row. Again, I'll provide a column. It could be like ID, and this could be the value itself. So maybe ID equals 20, whatever the case may be. And then again, really straightforward. So we get our client, and we say from, provide our table, and we delete, and we add the condition. And this condition would be where this column is equal to this value. And that's it. That's really it. And now we get one thing back. I can structure this to get the error. And I simply return the error. So what is the type of the error? So it's this. So I simply just copy this. Just so we are fast. And then that's all the code you need to delete a row. And I think we have more or less the basics that we need. And so one thing I would want to show you, of course, so I have this code prepared. I'm just gonna paste it in here. So this gives a lot more flexibility. I can create a new function here, call this const. Say filter rows. So like this would be useful when you want to write complex queries. Oh, sorry. So async, and I can just paste this here. I call this just table name. And so this is one way you can actually write a detailed query. So now you've seen us use equal to, so you could use greater than, less than, greater than, equal to, less than, or equal to, like, as you would in writing, like when you're writing raw SQL queries. And of course, this would be when it's case sensitive, when it's case insensitive, and as the case may be. So you have contain, of course, if you have array fields, and you get this really, it's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to leave this here. So again, giving you the flexibility to decide how you would want to use this. And so one thing else I would want to show you would be, if you remember, we talked about Supabase have given you this functionality, of course, to this option to work with real time. So so that you could actually listen to events, database events, and decide and act on them more or less. So one thing I would want to show you is to how to subscribe to those events and then act on them. And one of those events could be, what do you want to do when a user signs in, or when they sign out, or when they refresh their password, or whatever the case may be, or in general, like for the database, if you want to act on maybe when there is an insert, an update, and a delete, or whatever in the table. If you want to do something about this, I would show you how to listen to those events and then act on them. So what I would want to do is to come over here and add a new private attribute, and I can call this channels, and this would be of type real time channel, this one. So I would say if it could be either this or null, and because of that I have to instantiate this. I can say this, the channels would be equal to null, so that when you instantiate this class, this would be null. And now what I would want to show you, like really straightforward, guys. So for example, so let's say we want to listen to all the events that are coming into this table. It could be inserts, deletes, upserts, whatever, updates. So here we can create our function. I can call this sub to all events. So this would be a function that you could use to subscribe to all events. So I could call this again. We get our client, and now we go to channel and we use the custom all events, all channels, and now we could say on. So basically what should happen, or to which events do we want to listen to. Now we could say Postgres changes. So we listen to everything more or less, and then we need to add more function. So events, I would say of course everything. I'm not specifying everything or anything at all. And schema would be public. So the schema, of course, the default schema would be public, and under it would every table would exist more or less. And the table I would want to listen to, of course, would be this, that's table name. And what else do we need? And now we need to add a callback function. So we have the payload. Now we get when this event actually comes in, this is the payload we get. And now we can decide, so when we subscribe to events and they come in, what do we want to do with them? So for now I will leave that up to you. So if you're, let's just say you're building a chat application, and maybe something happens, or maybe a user goes back and deletes a message. If you want to go back to the channel and, I don't know, do something, or whatever the case may be, this is actually how you do that. But what I'm going to do here is I'll just console log the payload. But again, I leave that up to you to decide what you want to do. And so what we get back, of course, from this would be our channel. And I would name this, of course, channel. So I can maybe name it as plural, call it channels. And yes, of course, we now have to subscribe. So now we are listening to all events, and of course what I would want to do at this point is to set the channels, the one we defined here, to this one. And so that's when you instantiate this class and call this subscribe to all events, this would of course start listening to every database event, and then you decide how you want to consume them. And what I would of course maybe want to do here is to add a function that we can use to unsubscribe to events. So if you no longer want to, if you at some point to say, okay, I no longer want to listen to all these events, what should I do? So pretty straightforward. We use our channels again, and we'll say if this is actually, because we said it could be null as well. So but if this is not the case, we simply get this channel and then we unsubscribe. As simple as that. That's it. That's all we ever need to do. And so subscribe, unsubscribe, and that's it. Really, that's it. And of course, you can already imagine if we wanted to, for example, just listen to maybe inserts, right? So I can just really copy this down up here and paste it down here, and I can say subscribe to inserts, for example. So the only thing that needs to change is I come to events and I say insert. That's what I want to listen to, and really that's it. And of course, as you can already get, it's pretty straightforward. If you want to listen to let's say I don't know, updates, you simply change this to update, and that's just it. So that if you want to listen to only updates, you call this. If you want to listen to inserts, deletes, whatever the case may be, you can add these more functions as you would. And then of course, when you want to no longer listen to those events, you simply call .unsubscribe, and that's it. That's really straightforward. So as you can already see, we try to work with I've shown you how we could work with tables. I've shown you how we could work with real-time events that have been emitted from the database, how to subscribe and unsubscribe from them and to them. The last thing maybe I would want to show you is I would like to define a file here, and I can call this user. And in here, what I would want to show you more or less is to how to listen to if auth events. So more or less, if something happens, let's say a user signs in or signs out or whatever, one way of course you could listen to those events is what I would want to show you now. So I can create a class here, and I can call this maybe events API handler, and it extends our API handler class. And so I would like to again on the constructor and so I can say I would like to define the function, and this function will subscribe to auth events. That's a pretty long name if you ask me. But we get our client, and then we go to auth, and we go to on auth state change. So we have an event and session. No, actually, I'm trying to create a new function, so I can put this in brackets. I'm adding a callback session, and now I decide what I want to happen. So here I can write a switch statement, and that switch statement will listen to my events. So here, one of the, if this could be something like initial session, and then maybe I also just pull all of this here. And so initial session is one we could listen to. So one of course would be when the user signs in, when the user signs out, or when the user tries password recovery. Another one would be token refreshed, when a user refreshes a token. Another one would be when a user updates their attributes, more or less. And so now, of course, as you can see, we have the option to subscribe to all these events and then decide on more or less what we want to do with them. And so what we can again do is what we get back, I will destructure this. So this would be data, and of course this gives us a subscription. And I don't know if this is an async function. No, I don't think so. So we have to await it. And so here we can maybe return our data. So what I would want to return is subscription. Okay, so this should not here. But then, of course, we should still be able to do something like the subscription that's unsubscribe. And so to that effect, maybe what I will also do again, like we did before, I can call this create a private method here, and I can call this subscription. This will be of type subscription, and here I say this, that's subscription, and I set this to no, and this would also be of type no. And then what, again, like we did before, is to maybe provide a new method that we can call unsubscribe. And so we can say if this dot subscription, then we can unsubscribe. I'll say this is subscription dot unsubscribe, something like this. And that's pretty much it. So here you would want to do things like, so when the user signs in, what do I want to do? Do I want to maybe notify them with some welcome message, whatever? Like you can do this more or less. Like this is really so super cool, and I really think that you would find it also fun when you start to explore this. I also have so much more I would want to do with Supabase, and of course as time progresses and I of course experience this Supabase, of course when I try to build a couple of other different applications with it, I will try as much as I can to document this and then again share them with you. And thank you so much for being with me through this journey, and I hope you've learned a lot in this video. Until next time, have a lovely evening. If you are new to my channel, again, please subscribe. If something is not as you think it would be, or if you have questions or if you would want to discuss some things with me, please reach out to me, and I would be glad to, of course, get back to you as quickly as possible. Have a lovely evening, and until next time.